let's get to the main event. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce Brice. We are very honored to have him. He's a real expert on finance, and he's going to tell you that most of his expertise came from failure. He co-founded Win Mobile, which is now known as Freedom Mobile, the fourth largest wireless carrier in Canada. In 2008, that was in 2008, and 7 years later, they sold for $1.6 billion. So I think he has a decent idea of what he's doing when it comes to financial literacy. So Brice is going to walk us through how you can take better control of your finances and crucial knowledge you should have, including advice on income, expenses, and investments. We hope you find this presentation insightful and inspiring. And please remember that just some of this is just foundational information just to get you started and spark your ideas and interest in learning. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Brice, and please remember to enter any questions in the chat room, and we will definitely feed those to Brice in the Q&A. So with that, without further ado, here is Brice. Thank you, sir.
All right, Josh, thanks very much. And to everyone here, thank you very much for joining. This is a super important topic globally. I'm going to share my screen in a second and get going. And the fact that you're here is inspiring to me. I grew up in Canada. I'm 50 years old. And to this day, including polling students in my own country and beyond, financial literacy, which is our topic, is not well understood. It is not talked about enough. There's often no formal curriculum in the school systems. And it blows me away to this day that this fundamental core skill that we all need to kind of go through our lives in the most optimized way as it relates to this is basically completely underserved. So thank you for joining. And my goal here today is it's 20 minutes. I don't have a lot of time. So we're going to move quickly. We're going to introduce you to some concepts. There's a bibliography at the end that will hopefully steer you in some new and other learning directions. And then you can take this away, use it as a jumping off point for other topics to go deeper in. Okay, so as we said, the topic is financial literacy, and I gave the intro. Before I begin, I put this slide in every presentation that I do, and I want to impress upon all of you that as you're moving through life success in your careers, that there is a time where you'll want to give it back. Okay. And there's a self-actualization moment that I had many years ago where I started to mentor the next generation. And what I realized, the dirty little secret of mentorship is that it actually benefited me more than the mentee. I learned probably more than I was giving, and it became very formative to my life. So keep in mind that as you're progressing, remember your judgment is what you're building, and you can give that back to the next generation and also learn from it. Okay. I've got two slides here that talk about my background, and it's all glossy and talks about this and that. And we built companies, and we're very entrepreneurial as a group. 5 years ago, we sold and we started investing, made every mistake in the book, and have learned a lot. What these slides don't talk about is they don't talk about the fact that we made more mistakes than getting things right. And the point to this is that success is really driven by learning from a succession of setbacks and getting stronger and better from it. And that is a core message that I want to talk about today when we talk about the concept of financial literacy. Okay, just very quickly on our journey. So we did start from scratch. It was a few people coming together that left professional jobs, saw an opportunity, entrepreneurial, started a business, from zero. And then we found ourselves in the fortuitous position to build the fourth wireless company in Canada, and we ultimately sold it. And, I put half of it to luck, half of it to, a little bit of skill, and a lot of learning from failure. Okay, our major themes. So we're going to talk quickly about the definition of financial literacy and some comments around how to think about life within that. We're going to talk about the first pillar, which is what you earn minus what you spend equals what you save, negative or positive. Pillar 2 is investing, so some themes around investing. And then we're going to talk about what the definition of rich is, which will be a lot different than what you think it is. And then we're going to talk about some next steps to allow you jumping off points. Okay, so let's start with what is financial literacy. Financial literacy is the ability to use your knowledge and skills, to gain the knowledge and skills and use them to manage your financial resources for your life. Okay, this is a definition from something in the US Presidential Council on the matter. They are hand-wringing everywhere about how to educate citizenry better to then take that learning and translate into practical application. And that's what we're here to introduce you to as a group. Okay, I want to start with a quote from Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft. If you are born poor, it's not your fault. But if you die poor, it is your fault. And it's a bit of a blunt quote. And the reason I put it out there is to not cast any biases or anything like that. What I want to say to you is no matter what circumstances you come from, you control your life. You can take ownership of your life. You've been born in the greatest period in the history of humankind. You've got information at your fingertips. You've got a whole new world of learning and education and remote work opportunities and so on. Look for the positive, seize the moment, take control of your life. Okay, life's going to throw a lot at you. You know, to relate it to financial literacy, you're rolling along, you're having a good investing run, and then suddenly a credit crisis happens in 2008, and you lose 50% of your net worth. Those times of crisis and how you respond and how you react and how you get stronger from it are how we gain and win as a society and as humans. Okay, there is a very well-known gentleman by the name of Taleb, who writes a lot on uncertainty. He has a book which I put in the biblio called Anti-Fragile. And he claims, and I agree with him, that in crisis, one should actually run to it, look for the opportunity, grow from it, and look stronger. Don't be the victim. Don't cast blame. Don't blame yourself. Don't blame others. Get on with it. There's a Stoic philosophy. This is an ancient Greek philosophy that talks about you can't control everything around you, but you can control how you respond. And that's a very powerful philosophy. I've got a comment on that in the bibliography. Okay, I mentioned the victim narrative. None of us here are victims. We are all looking forward to the best lives ahead of us. Always take ownership. Own it. Don't worry about what others think. Don't worry about status, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Okay, last but not least, Winston Churchill, UK World War II leader, some of the best quotes in the world of all time. And he talks about success is not final. So because you've had a good run doesn't mean you're done. And failure is not fatal. And in fact, the win on failure in general is learning from it actually makes you stronger, because the lesson from failure is much different than the lesson from success. Okay, let's go to pillar one. Income, what you earn, minus spending, what you spend, equals savings. And the concept we're trying to get across here is the concept of personal ownership of earning, spending, and saving. Okay, I'm a good Canadian. Hockey is our national sport. And this was the best hockey player of all time, Wayne Gretzky, and he had one of the best quotes. And I use this when I think about earning. Skate to where the puck is going, not to where it has been. And what I mean by that here is that if you look forward in what is happening in our society, where is growth? Growth is in technology. Growth is in artificial intelligence, autonomous. It's in synthetic biology. It's in the fields of technology and kind of human advancement. And that, I think, is how you want to think about where to look forward. Okay. When we talk about how to maximize, if I can use that term, your earnings, we usually look at a combination of your personal values, your passion, your talent, and kind of where your economic opportunity is. And a friend of mine kind of said something that struck me. He said, my passion is football, and that's soccer for us in North America. But my talent is not that. So I've got to look at things where I can combine passion, talent, and economic opportunity. And that's how we think about earning power. Okay, you guys, as I mentioned, you're in a golden age of learning. Credentialing is changing. You've got those smartphones, you've got the internet connectivity, you've got education on demand at your fingertips and very cost effective. You've got remote work that allows you to pair up with tech companies no matter where you live in the world and bring your skills to bear. The world is so much different for creating and for starting businesses and so on. Again, I love the time you're in, and I kind of am jealous of the opportunities that you're going to be able to seize in front of you. I want to tell a story about maximizing optionality. A friend of mine's kid was referred to me. He had just finished a political science degree in Canada, and he called and said, I was doing this to go to law school, and I decided my year 3, I didn't want to go to law school, so I don't know what to do, and I can't get a job. And I said, well, let's look at some options for you. And what he ended up doing is he ended up doing a 6-month boot camp course on user experience and user design to kind of change his direction and skate to where the puck is going. And it caused me to think, well, you spent 4 years doing a degree on the anticipation of going to law school. Your life's going to change 20 times in undergrad. What was your optionality with that? What if you didn't want to go to law school? Would you have done something different going in to get you ready for law school, but also to allow you other options. Last but not least, mentors, sponsors, and hubs. I grew up in a very small town in Canada. I don't know why I saw this, but I gravitated to the big financial center where the tech ecosystem was and so on. And it allowed me to create a network there that has benefited me. Seek out mentors. People want to help other people. They love when you ask them questions and ask them about their expertise. They will help you with this. They will help you with other things in life. This all helps you skate to where the puck is and maximize how you think about your income. Let's move to savings. Okay, savings. This is the thing you have the most control of. Are you going to buy that or not? That is a decision you can always make. The concept I want to drill here is move the goalpost carefully as you build your wealth and income. And by that, I mean, don't always build a spending pattern that matches the growth in your income. It creates more and more overhead and the need to always be catching up with income to spending. Okay, and let's get a little more prescriptive. So you have control of spending, as I mentioned. You want to buy that or not? That is your decision. Use common sense. I don't have a deprivation narrative. I don't think that one should go and deprive themselves of things and kind of live a monk life. That's not what we mean here. But I think there are ways to think about how you spend in a very rational way using concepts of extendability and substitution, which I'll explain in a moment, that can get you very gratifying personal outcomes with a slightly different approach. And I'm going to use a silly example to give you, but it's a true story. My wife and I used to go to Starbucks twice a day, every day, each year for years. In Canada, 4 Starbucks a day for the two of us twice a day is $20 a day. That's over $7,000 a year. It's nonsensical. I bought a cappuccino maker for $700 and I spend $400 or $500 a year on coffee beans, and I cut my spend on Starbucks down by $6,500. Okay, it's a stupid example. It's a crazy habit, completely nonsensical, but I did it. And by the act of doing that and channeling that into a savings opportunity, I will show you the power of that when we talk about investing. Okay. And, another example, my car is 11, 12 years old. I bought a house in 2007. My net worth has tripled since then. I have no need for a bigger house. Keep your goalposts in line. Don't be a monk, but keep your goalposts in line. The last comment I'll make here is that status is not again, this is a 50-year-old talking to, younger people. So, take it for what it is. But I can tell you that having another item, another pair of shoes, another shirt or whatever, another car is not the win in life. The win in life is experiences, it's relationships, it's impact, it's knowledge, it's learning, it's exploring and discovering. And you will see that, and I just would throw that out to you to think about. Okay, debt. Debt is a real interesting topic. We can get ourselves into all kinds of trouble with debt, credit cards, spending more than we earn, trying to claw our way out of it. What my rules of thumb are, so you size your lifestyle to your earnings, and you create budgets and you be methodical. But the incurrence of debt should be done for purposes of investment. And by investment, I mean investment in your education, investment in your housing, and those would be the 2 big categories for me. And when I say education, I want to be thoughtful here. I'm not talking about going to Stanford, spending $200,000 and borrowing on that. That may make sense in limited circumstances, but always think about what it is you're borrowing for, how you will pay it back in a sensible manner, and how that will impact you over a lifetime. Okay. Last point on savings. Everything in life that's worth doing properly requires a process. It forces behavior, it creates frameworks, and it creates structure. Set up a savings process, set up a digital account. You got beautiful digital accounts everywhere in the world now. Start small, just a little bit, $1 a day, 10 cents a day. If you're in a country where your purchasing power parity is different than Canada, start it small. The fees are low now. You can get stuff moved, you get an account going, and then you can start with the next topic we're going to talk about, which is investing. I guarantee you that you will find when you start saving, it's actually addictive, seeing that balance and seeing it grow. Okay, let's talk about investing. So investing is obviously the art of taking your savings and turning it into something that starts to grow and compound. And the main point that I want to impress upon you, and let me be clear, I did a finance degree. I was never taught finance the way I'm about to talk to you in investing. It was all math. And it made no sense because you can learn the math of finance for practical purposes in an hour or two. Investing is all about behavior. What do you do when the market drops 50% and it seems like the world is collapsing around you? Do you lose your head or do you keep your head? Do you follow cognitive biases that are ingrained in our reptilian brain? Or do you understand when your body or your mind starts to react that way, and do you counter them? That is the win long-term on investing, is behaving properly, just not making the wrong behavioral moves. Finance degree, Canada, good environment I'm working in, made every possible mistake. Took me 30 years to understand this. And I'm trying to give you, I would love to have had this presentation when I was 20 years old. And I stumbled upon a book, and I've got it in the bibliography. And there's a blog post as well that's free, if the book is not accessible to you, that you can use to really jumpstart on a lot of this behavioral topic. It's called The Psychology of Money. It came out a year ago. It is the best book, bar none, I've ever read on investing. And I want to put that out to the world. I've referred it to tons of people, and I've got a lot of good feedback on it. So read that book urgently. Okay. Long slide, I'm not going to read it. My inspiration is from the book, and it talks very specifically about psychology and behavioral aspects as the inspiration, not a little bit of math here and there. Okay, now you guys have one thing going for you that I can never get back, and that is time. People ask me, would you want to be young again? And what I actually say is, I don't want to relive my life, but I'd love to be able to start compounding a lot earlier. Time is your friend, and you want to start now. Why is time your friend? Okay, we all know Albert Einstein, theory of relativity. He has a quote that I think best sums up the concept of time. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. And let me give you two examples. Okay, this is a classic test of compounding. If I offered you $1 million today, or a penny that doubles every day for 30 days, what would you take? The normal reaction is I would take the $1 million, obviously, right? That's a lot of money, a penny. What are you talking about? If you look at this schedule, you will see over 30 days, a penny doubling itself. So doubling itself again. So you're earning money on money, which is what compounding is. And our brains think linearly, not exponentially. Compounding is an exponential concept. By the end of 30 days, starting with that one penny, you will have over $5 million in the bank. That's an extreme example. We can't double our money every single day. But let's look at a practical example. This is real. This is from my neighborhood. And this is a true example happening now. My neighbor's kid, 15 years old, started a landscaping business a couple of years ago in the neighborhood. He does all the lawns and so on. He has built up a little bit of capital. He came to me and he said, what do I do with this? And I sat down with him and I did a spreadsheet that said, his name's Luke. Luke, if you invest $1,000 a year at the age of 15, and you put that in some simple investments, and you allow them to grow without touching them, without interrupting the compounding, and you do that each year, $1,000, at the age of 65, you will have $466,000, okay? And that cash outlay is 51 years, $1,000. So you've outlaid 51,000 over 51 years, and you end up with 400. And that is the power of earning money on money. And I will tell you, if you're not in Canada or the US, if you're in a country where the purchasing power parity is different, divide this. $100 a year, that would be 46,000. If it's $10 a year, that would be 4,665. It's divisible. So no matter where you are, with the tools that we have at hand now, you can start early, you can start small, and you can grow, and you never interrupt it. And that is how you win. Now, here's a very powerful example, though, of how important it is to start early. Luke has a brother named Eric who works with him in the landscaping business. Eric is 12. We did the same math for Eric, starting at the age of 12 to the same age of 65. You will note here that Eric, with that 3 extra years, ends up with over $100,000 more than Luke because of the late year power of compounding. And again, I'm not going to get it all drilled through in this presentation, but I encourage you to do a little bit of research on it and to understand the power of getting in early, growing your money carefully, and not interrupting it. It is one of the most powerful forces in the world. Okay, little bit of a kind of an action points on investing. How do you start? So you take those savings that we talked about. You set up a brokerage account. You can set them up all over the place. Digital, again, very easy to move money into and so on. Make sure it's stable and safe, which one can check on. And then you have your savings in. You buy a couple of simple, low fee, well-diversified investment products. You set it and you forget it and you let it grow. And I guarantee once you see this happen, you will get addicted to it. Okay. I want to make one other point on investing. This is for countries where there's home ownership potential. Is studies have shown that if you save to buy a home and you leverage your equity with a mortgage therein, generally speaking, wealth is a little bit higher in the people that do that than those that don't. And there's a few reasons for it. I've outlined them here. I throw that as a corollary point. Okay, now I want to make an important observation to you. Over the course of my, call it 30-ish years, my net worth has dropped 25%, greater than 25% 3 times because of crashes in the market. Once in 2000 when the internet bubble burst, the first one, once in 2008 with the credit crisis, and a year ago when the pandemic hit and the markets collapsed. What did I do? People sell often at these drops, which is the completely wrong counterintuitive behavior. The win, as I said, is behavioral. You stay steady, you work your way through that, you let it, set it and forget it, and every time it comes back. And it's always done that through history. Okay, 2 other points, and then we're going to get into kind of the final part. The financial media is devastating. They're built to entertain. They're built for short-term thinking. They want you to buy stuff, products, and all this complexity. All of it should be discarded. You do not need to fall into their traps. Okay, and then the other thing that I see a lot of is you see, the media, crypto, Bitcoin this, GameStop this, Elon Musk this. If you look, I'm not saying don't touch any of that. I'm not a deprivation messenger. But what I will say about it is that I view those as speculative bets that do not have great long-term economic fundamentals. I'm a long-term thinker, as you've heard from this conversation. What I advise people is if you're going to go down these roads, you're going to make some bets, take a very small percentage of your savings and make the bet and assume you're going to lose it all. Sometimes you won't, but treat it like a casino, not like an economic underpinned fundamental. Okay, into the final steps here. What is the definition of rich? It is not how many cars you own. It is not how big your house is. The definition of rich is freedom. The definition of freedom is unfettered control of your time. And what does that mean? That means that when you get up in the morning, you don't need to do anything you don't want to do. That's control of your time. You want to stay in bed, watch Netflix with your partner and enjoy the day, watch the sunrise, sunset, have a glass of wine. That's control of your time. The complete control of your time is achieved when your passive investment income is greater than what you spend. And that means your money is working for you and your life can be sized within what your money is doing for you. Okay, final steps here. My advice is if you kind of buy into this, go talk to a bunch of other people, check out my work. I have no proprietary rights to this, but I would build a personal financial literacy curriculum using the internet, using some books and so on, and I would get educated. There's a lot you can do right now. I would start networking on these themes. When you get out in the world, you start hitting the websites and so on, there's networks, there's comments, there's social, plus you have your own mentor communities. Reach out to your communities, people that you respect, people that are in these worlds, and just ask them some questions. The worst thing they can do is say, no, I don't have time. Who cares? Start small. Start some small saving, build a small budget, and just start small. And then just get your compounding going. Okay. There's a lot we didn't talk about. We're not going to cover it here. I've only scratched the surface within our time constraints. So lots of other topics to investigate over time. And I've broken the bibliography, you'll get these slides, into 3 categories. One is mindset, all that stuff I talked about the beginning, about own your life and grow from crisis and failure. I've got a financial behavior set of bibliography. And I can tell you that the podcast that I highlight here is free. The blog that I highlight here is free. So even if you don't have access necessarily to Amazon or whatever, there are ways of getting some of this access kind of on the internet. And then last but not least, I've got some other topics around spending, the Mr. Money Mustache, which is one of the most popular money spending blogs on the internet. And then if you want to go a little deeper on investing, there's some free books at that link that I have on here. Okay, my parting message to you is start now. Okay, every day you wait is a day less of compounding.
Thank you, Brice. That's fantastic. We have some really fantastic questions I'm excited to share. I guess the first question, this is a really good one, and it's gonna probably throw you for a little bit of a loop. What books would you advise to learn more about investing, especially when I'm in a country whose economic situation is very unstable, such that I'm able to afford a house, a piece of land, and other basic commodities? What would you recommend?
Well, look, I'll tell you that the core curriculum is the same globally. Okay, getting the fundamental principles right of earning, saving, investing, compounding, behavior, and so on are unchanged. Okay, then I think what I would add to it is there may be some corollary learnings that are helpful, that are specific to a situation. If you're in a high inflation environment, that could create certain resources that you want to look at. Okay, if you're in a zone that you're trying to leave because of strife and conflict, there might be some things to think about in terms of trying to move and change locations in terms of your earning and safety potential. So I would say to you, don't change the core, but take some of the specifics of your own scenario and augment it. And I guarantee you that you give the country and you start doing some work on that in the context of that country and what the issues are, and you will probably find limitless opportunities. I've studied inflation in various contexts when I was in school, and that was an important topic for certain countries. There's tons of literature out there. Okay, immigration. Again, I don't want to go too deep on this stuff at the surface level, but Canada admits 400,000 to 500,000 immigrants per year. We have a point system. Okay, if you felt like Canada was an interesting country, you would get understanding of the point system. It's education typically driven with certain skills that relate to certain in-demand job opportunities. We'll start understanding that, and so again, I don't want to try to extrapolate onto your situation, but that's how I would say it.
Awesome. Thanks, Brice. Next question. How does one maximize debt responsibility?
Yeah, it's a great question. So look, the reality is that you maximize debt responsibility by managing your spending. Okay, remember, income minus spending equals positive or negative savings. Okay, income is harder to control. There's a whole buildup of skills and education and credentials and so on, and then you work your way up a ladder, or you start a business and take some risk and so on. The spending side is where you have control. So again, I always come back to, it's a lifestyle sizing. It's a recognition that you don't have to keep up with the Joneses. It's a recognition that status is not driven by material consumption. And on the, if you buy into that and believe that, then you have a lot of control over debt management by virtue of that. The other comment that I'll make on debt is, I've been reading a lot of articles about people taking on debt for education without thinking through the true value that they will ultimately achieve in an earnings way out of that education. I'll give you an example. You go to Columbia in New York City, it's a $200,000 education for a field that will pay 30 grand a year after. That is a very hard mountain to get to claw from because you've decided to follow a passion or whatever. I don't want you not to follow passion, but what I want you to do is I want you to do it realistically. So if your earning potential in your passion is X, your debt for student cannot be above a repayable amount in a logical period of time. So think it through smartly. And again, last one on debt, your house and the ability to purchase a house and so on, size it properly. Do not stretch to a level that you put yourself in jeopardy. I'll stop there.
Awesome. That's a great answer. I love that. Next question. This is an interesting question, and also something I wish I knew the answer to back when I was going into college. What do you think about using credit cards to build credit scores or tools like credit cards?
Yeah, it is a fair question, and I did that. So it's a direct on point question. Here's how I did it. Okay, I got a credit card knowing I'd need a credit score. Okay, and what I did is I paid my balance off every single month. Okay, I've never in my life carried a credit card debt that I had to pay interest on. Okay, so do not use the credit card as a long-term borrowing tool. You guys all know the devastating nature of the interest rate charges on that. So, but I do see value in, first of all, not necessarily having cash and having the ability to use a credit card, hook it to Apple Pay or whatever, and use it digitally. There's value there, but also building up a credit rating responsibly with a credit card is absolutely fine.
Excellent. I've time for a couple more, and I'm going to combine these two questions together, because they're relatively specific. But I like the questions because I like where their head's at. What Canadian ETFs would you recommend to invest in? And the other part of that question is, what long-term dividend stocks do you still invest in and always have?
Okay, this is very specific. Okay,
Yeah.
and look, I'm going to try to generalize it because the lesson can't be for Canada only, but the point is interesting. Okay, so I agree with you, Josh. It's good. Okay, so let's talk about ETFs. So ETFs are a beautiful exchange traded funds. They are a way to buy a basket, a diversified basket of whatever the underlying instrument is at a very low fee. And it done right, you can also do it in a very low tax way. So if you're going to put me on the spot here, what I would recommend is look to the global indexes that give you a very broad, diversified swath of equities around the world, generally. Okay. And then I'm going to say I'm going to give you a little editorial here. Remember, I talked about that 5% bet category. Well, I think if I was to recommend how you approach that category, you can buy Bitcoin, okay, or you could buy an ETF that focused on the picks and shovels, as they call it, of crypto. And if you're going to put me on the spot, I would actually use those kinds of category, the ETFs for that kind of stuff in my bet category versus buying Bitcoin. So I think there's a smarter way to make the bet. As it relates to dividend paying stocks, I have tons of them. Okay, I do use them. All right. And what I do is I look for a diversified portfolio across the sectors of a certain dividend yield rate. And I have a bunch of them and they pay me every month and they typically grow every year. And there are things called dividend aristocrats, companies that have increased their dividends for 25 years straight. There's a bunch of technical stuff in there that I don't want to get into. But once you're past I understand investing, I understand compounding, I understand basic concepts of diversification, set it and forget it, then you can have a little bit of further education on what ETFs, what dividend growth stocks, and so on. I don't think this is the forum to get too deep in that.
Thanks, Brice. That actually is a nice segue into the next question, which is, as a young person, where can I meet, or if you know of any networks where I can meet more people that share the same vision to continue to learn and have these conversations? Do you know of any places that we can do that?
So if you're talking specifically about financial literacy, there's billions of online communities. Okay. And there are just, again, once you start doing a little bit of research, use the biblio that I've got on these slides to get started. And you can start participating. You go to Mr. Money Mustache, let's pick one. You look at the forums, you look at the comments in, any article written. The best part of an article is always the comments. You see what people are asking questions on. You learn from those questions. You ask questions. No question is stupid. You have to learn. And then you seek out others, like I said, mentorship online or offline, and you start building. There are millions of these places. I don't particularly have one preferred. I use tons of sources, but there again, a little bit of online research and you'll be on your way.
Excellent. Thank you. This is actually, the next question is a really, I think, a fantastic question. Thinking about investing, there are countries that don't have financial institutions that provide things like index funding, ETFs, Roth IRAs. How would you advise someone hungry to invest in such an environment?
Yeah, so great question. So I think, look, I go in a couple of directions. Number one is, do you really need to worry about your home country's investment world, given the global abilities now? That would be point one. So quite frankly, I talked about setting up a digital account somewhere in the world. Usually you can do it now on some platforms globally, unless your local securities regulators don't allow it, which in most countries you can get around that. You set up the account, make sure that it's reputable, custodial. You're not going to lose your money. It's not something that is kind of fly by night. It's very well understood and established in the world. There are many. You set that account up. You set yourself up to start doing transfers to that account, all within the normal, like cheap and cheerful digital system that we're in. And then from there, you should have access to any type of financial product, based on a good choice of that account. I do not see border restrictions anymore in the world. Okay, that we are not restricted by border, and you can very quickly and efficiently get outside of your home country.
Excellent. The next question is I'm curious to hear your personal story around this specific question. Is how does one get out of the short-term mindset and into a long-term one? And it's something I personally have struggled with as well.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to hear kind of what was the point where you kind of changed your mindset.
Look, it's a great question. And I will tell you that I probably had the revelation after we sold our final operating business. And I actually had a chance to take a step back, a breath, and really actually evaluate what was going on. And I mean that beyond financial literacy. Okay. Like you guys, you get out into your world and you're fighting, right? We're building businesses. We almost lost our business 5 times. You can't think about long-term frameworky type thinking. It's when you get a little, like, again, take it from me, you get a little bit older and you start to free up some of your time back to getting some time back, and you can start trying to understand the narrative of what's happened to the positive and to the negative. And that creates framework thinking. Okay. So candidly, I started to read more on these topics. I've always been a big reader. If you're a reader, you're 50% of the way to the end game here. So try to force yourself to read. And I know it sounds weird to say force yourself, but if you start simply, if you're not a reader and you get going, it'll get better and better. Trust me, I know. And I started to read the big seminal books on a lot of these topics, and it changed my way of thinking. And I could give you some of the bibliography would take you there, but look and emulate those who you see are these types of thinkers. I'll give you one example. Warren Buffett, worldwide greatest investor known to humankind. His business partner is a guy named Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger is known as a long-term deep thinker. If you read a little bit about Charlie Munger, you will start to understand that kind of mindset. It's been powerful for me to read about guys like that and understanding how they think. So you just got to put the effort in. You've got to read. You've got to research. You got to talk to people. You got to change. You got to force yourself in the curiosity and lifelong learning. Force yourself to expose yourself to these concepts.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, I know we're short on time, and I do want to give an opportunity for folks to jump into their breakout sessions. Perfect. So I'm gonna give you one last question, and then that'll give us an opportunity to get ready to transition. And that question is, any tips on time management and networking?
Yeah. So big topics, both of them. What I generally say to people, so networking is fundamental to what we did in our business. I could give you 5 examples of meeting someone by way of a complicated networking serendipitous event, including me meeting my business partner now, all the way to how we found the money for our company, to blah, blah, blah. And all of that starts with casting a wide network, enjoying it, building the enjoyment factor, seeking connections, being a good person. Don't be an asshole, if I could summarize, and building relationships, okay? And not always taking. it's a 50-50 street. Okay. And we look, the tools are there to network, right? You can do it so many ways now globally. It did not exist this way when I was younger. You had to do it the old fashioned way, go have a coffee and talk on the phone. Now it's a different world. Those in-persons are still important. On the time management, so my business partner and I are militantly scheduled and structured because it's very easy to lose your time. But if I could summarize, find a productivity mechanism. And generally what it works, I'll use Jim Collins as an example, a very famous business writer. He did Good to Great. The productivity narrative is long-term. So you got the big life goals, and then you carve those down into annuals. So 5-year to annual, and then backwards. And you prioritize within that, always starting with the top goals that you're looking for, and then working your way down. And I tell you, the win is elimination, not adding. The act of eliminating and simplifying, focused on the big things, that those big moments and events that cause you to make decisions to go in those ways are how you win. But yeah, so those would be my comments there.
Excellent. And thank you again for joining us. And thank you again, Brice, and everyone who's here. Hope you all have a great day, evening, whatever it may be, and wherever you are. Really appreciate it. So thank you again. And thanks again, Brice.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Good luck with everything in your future. Thank you.
Thanks so much.